Everybody wants to be Batman. Nobody wants to build Wayne Enterprises. Everybody remembers Iron Man. If you remember, he owned the factory. People watch The Big Short and think it's about real estate. It's not. It's about understanding the paper behind the assets. When people walk through one of our manufactured homes, they see a remodel. We see the beginning of a performing first-lien note. One family moves in, one contractual payment begins, one cash flowing asset is created. Most investors stop at the flip. We keep building the system. When Mobile Homes acquires and renovates, Silvercrest Opportunity Fund structures and manages the private credit. Mobile Mailbox Money teaches how the entire model works. The home isn't the destination, it's the origin story. The note is what lasts. While others chase the next deal, we're building an ecosystem that keeps producing them, because long-term wealth rarely comes from owning one asset. It comes from the system that creates the next one. Most people buy real estate. We manufacture first-lien cash flow.
You can't stop this. This is anarchy. It's over.
Welcome back to the Mobile Mailbox Money Mastermind. We're here today, July 30th, with the Family Bank. Me and my cohorts here providing deal flow, as well as accredited and non-accredited investors, a back office view on what we do on a day-to-day basis. We appreciate you being here today. We do this once a week live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can go back and watch the previous vlogs, the podcast, the masterminds. But we're here today to instill trust, transparency, and potentially provide you an opportunity for a smashing passive return. I've got my cohorts here today, Sean and Sunny. Sunny, maybe if you could just introduce yourself for the viewers that don't know you.
Hi there, my name is Sunny Finkel, and I am the Investor Relations Specialist for Mobile Mailbox Money and Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. I am also the Loan Compliance Coordinator for Win Mobile Homes. I help the sales agents usher their transactions to the closing table so that we are able to generate new notes for you each time there is an interest in an investment. We have a note for you.
Absolutely.
I will also be operating the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll be happy to read them out loud and answer them for you.
And Sean Gibson. Sean, if you could just introduce yourself. Excuse me.
Yes, hey, this is Sean Gibson with Mobile Mailbox Money. I'm actually a note specialist, but like I always say, I'm also a jack of all trades. I'm also an investor as well. But I also help Win Mobile Homes acquire manufactured homes, like the one I'm sending in here right now as well, too. So, yes.
You know, multifaceted. We're not just a lender. At the end of the day, we are the largest boots on the ground in third-party manufactured housing. In Arizona, we hold an industry category in Business Network International for manufactured housing. My fund, Silvercrest Opportunity Fund, has sponsored Arizona Real Estate Investors Association. So we've got our roots out in the environment. I'm Alden Guajardo, president of Silvercrest Opportunity Fund, vice president of Win Mobile Homes, and about 8 years in, we've done 400 transactions. That's about $30 million vertically integrated, from buying, rehabbing, reselling, seller financing, originating the note, raising the private capital for transactions that you will see here today. So good afternoon, everyone. I want to open today with a question an investor asked me last week, because I think it is the sharpest question I've gotten in a while, and I want to answer it in front of this room. He said, why would I invest in notes today, given this market, and specifically why manufactured housing? That's a fair question. Let me answer it honestly in two parts. Part one, why notes right now? Look at where capital is sitting today. The stock market is priced for perfection while carrying real uncertainty. Rental real estate requires you to acquire a door at today's elevated prices, then hope rates come down enough to refinance into something that actually cash flows. Savings accounts are losing to inflation in real terms every single month. Every conventional option right now is asking you to bet on the market cooperating. A performing note asks nothing of the market. It takes one thing. Does the borrower keep paying? That is a fundamentally different risk than betting on rates, cap rates, or buyer appetite 18 months from now. You're not underwriting the economy. You're underwriting a family decision to keep the roof over their children's heads. In an uncertain market, that is not a small distinction. That is the entire distinction. Part 2. Why manufactured housing specifically? Here's the honest answer. Because the banks have left. Conventional lenders largely stopped financing manufactured home transactions, not because the asset performs poorly, because it does not fit their underwriting box. The loan sizes are smaller, the asset class is less familiar, and it got deprioritized. So when a bank walks away from an entire category of American families who need housing, that gap does not close. It just waits for someone else to serve it. And that's why private lenders step in. We're not competing with banks for this business. We're doing business the banks refuse to do. And here's what makes the borrower profile so strong. They are not speculative buyers chasing appreciation. These are families who could not get financed anywhere else, moving into a home they intend to live in for years, often paying close to what they were already paying in rent. That's a huge identifier. That's not marginal risk. That is a highly motivated, deeply committed borrower, protected further by a second layer of underwriting most investors never hear about, because the community itself verifies income and background before approving anyone to move in. So to answer him directly, why notes today? Because it is the only major asset class where your return does not depend on the market behaving. Why manufactured housing? Because it is the segment banks abandoned and families still need, which is exactly the gap where private capital gets paid to solve a real problem. That's not a theoretical thesis. It is what this platform has been doing, transaction by transaction, for 8 years. So today, as we talk about the pipeline, I want you holding on to the question, not is this a good note, but why does this specific asset class make sense in this specific market right now? Because that is the question that actually protects your capital. So let's get into it. Let's talk about a couple deals. We've got a few different transaction types today, and we are still live sharing our screen on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you have any questions, Sonny will bring those aloud. As far as due diligence, or maybe just trying to get a little bit more comfortable with what a transaction looks like, those questions could cost you $5,000 from an attorney trying to get it answered. We are not attorneys. You should consult with legal counsel. But that being said, we've done this for 8 years. Plenty of transactions, compliant, third-party underwriting, a licensed mortgage officer on staff. The proof's in the pudding. So let me bring up my list here. We've been talking about 195 for a couple of weeks. This property is a 4-bed, 2-bath off Ellsworth and Broadway in a family mobile home park. This property, I've actually got it incorrect on this sheet, but the buyer borrower is a little shaky. They're trying to get a co-signer. She's getting gifted her down payment. I believe at one point the family may step in once she gets the full down payment. So we've got it potentially pending. The buyer, I believe, was approved by the park at $135,000 price point with $10K down on a 20-year term.
It's $125,000 with $10,000 down for a $115,000 note, and the payments are $1,430.05.
So over $15,000 a year in passive cash flow in first lien position with a buyer that's matching or beating market rent with similar square footage. This park's highly desirable. We've done probably 20 flips in this one park alone. Vast variety off these major cross streets for us. So deep track record, quality down payment from the buyer borrower, and ultimately not a done deal yet. They're coming through the qualification processes. Sounds like Sonny's probably still in contact with them. So that's great to hear at a high level equation. That's 115. If they fall out, we increased price to 135, warranted at that price point.
The crazy part about it is that they're buying a 4.2 all in with PITI and lot rent, $2,500. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, average rent in the valley is about 2,000 for a 2.2, 3.2, depending on what area. So, great value for this person. Hopefully they come through. Lot number 12, I think, Sonny, you've been handling this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just give us the spiel?
Okay. They're contracted at $135,000. She is, and they have $2,000 in earnest money and a $10,000 down payment. The note amount is $125,000. The payment is this one is non-Dodd-Frank compliant, but they do show the proper income, so it does offer the higher interest rate for the slightly greater risk. The payment on this one is $1,645.99, and it's going to close on Saturday morning.
The thing to understand and take into an underwriting criteria is if an individual's income, purely because of the type of income that they're making, doesn't hit certain benchmarks, that's up to the underwriting criteria of the individual lending the money. I think she's making cash tips as a server. She's been a server a long time. She's got a small family and ultimately wants to get to the next step. She's much more qualified than a renter, but not qualified enough to buy a single family residence here in the valley. Where does that gap, that's where that gap comes in as far as this product out in the market. She's a picture perfect individual for a home like this that's wanting ownership but can't qualify for a $400,000 average single family purchase here in the valley. Even a mobile home on land is $250,000 to $325,000. At $135,000, she spends half of what she would have spent on a conventional real estate purchase, and her monthly payment is matching or beating market rent. So she can't go anywhere else for cheaper at the end of the day for this similar finish, square footage, beds and baths, and quality. She could go probably to Central Phoenix or something like that and get something much more affordable. But for this area in South Mountain, actually in South Phoenix, we've done, I think, 15 transactions in these communities. This is Casa De Francisco, La Montaña del Sur's right across the street. And those are owned by Kingsley Management, who's an institution that owns quality, affordable, manufactured home communities across the valley like Mesa, as well as Apache Junction. This is in South Mountain, and a few others nationwide. So we've elevated in contact tree with Kingsley Management to buy their homes in its as-is condition, put it out as a turnkey product, and then ultimately seller finance that home and bring that note to you here today. So that's $125,000, paying $1,645.99 a month, $1,645.99 a month for a 20-year term. If you don't have a mortgage calculator, do yourself a service. Download that on the App Store. It is free. Should be getting a fee for bringing their name up, but to be continued.
Carl's Mortgage
Calculator. Lot 38, Casa De Francisco, same park. We actually bought this home on a vlog. So I walked through this property, negotiated with the homeowner, and got to a purchase price. We ended up agreeing about $20,000. So I bought this house at $20K. We have since did new flooring and ripped out the cabinets. So I'll get an updated photo package for my lender when that takes place. But we have a buyer for this property. They wanted it rehabbed. They saw another home in the park that was remodeled and in this similar square footage. So she had the trust enough to actually contract it before closing or before rehab has been taken place. So we've done new flooring, laminate. We'll have new cabinets in here, paint inside and out. Looks like we had to fix a window here, but central AC unit, and at a price where if she contracted before the rehab was taking place, we're at $85,000. Whereas if she backs out, we're now at $99,000 as a 3-bed, 2-bath rehabbed in this same Casa De Francisco mobile home park. Lot 38, Casa De Francisco. She has a contracted price of $85,000. She'll put $5,000 down towards the unpaid balance, equating to an $80,000 unpaid balance. At $80,000, or your acquisition cost of a cash flowing, consummated, and qualified seller finance note at $80,000 pays $994.82 over a 20-year term. And that payment may go up a little bit as they go through our underwriting criteria, but that would be the most recent evolution of her application process. I think we are 2 weeks, maybe less, from being rehab complete. So sometime in the next 10 days, we'll be seeking a private lender to participate in this note. Let's say an investor didn't want a 20-year term. Completely understandable. A lot of people don't. Maybe you're just a private investor, a hard money lender, or someone just looking for a passive return in their IRA, solo 401k, or really just personal investment, and they're not used to holding a note for 20 years. We could take this same note, right, that's coming to the table at the same unpaid balance, give you a 1-year term, right, and at $80,000 in exchange for your credit or capital that you extend on this transaction for a 1-year term is $666 a month. So you make $666, not a great number, but it is a good monthly payment, right? In order to get 19 years of liquidity, you get a 1-year term and a $600 plus monthly payment for a 1-year term. So in a year from now, we come sit back at the table, say, hey, congratulations. You've been making your monthly payment. It's pretty easy to see if things are working or not because you received your distribution. At that point, you have the option to liquidate that position. You have the option to auto roll over the position. And in case of default, we stand behind the note. What is that called? That's called hypothecation. So I hypothecate this note at $80,000 for a 1-year term at $600 plus a month, and stand behind that transaction. You hitch your cart to a qualified operator and effectively start receiving distributions within a 30-day program. That could be done non-accredited. Most people don't know that a note, anyone can buy a note. You don't have to fit specific criteria to qualify to buy a transaction like this or to place it in your IRA. Whereas in a fund like Silvercrest Opportunity Fund, you would have to be accredited. So all of these notes that I talk about here today could inadvertently be absorbed into our Reg D 506C accredited investor fund, where we have 2.5 million working right now, and my investors earn a 10% return for a 1-year term paid monthly, or 12% for a 3-year term paid quarterly. Similar to hypothecation, but instead of just being on one note transaction like Lot 38, now you participate in the success of 30 positions, performing now at a $24,000 a month monthly cash flow plus. And if one note goes non-performing, the fund repossesses and ultimately resells the property at no cost to the investor. So much more stability, similar to like depositing your money in a bank account, with the diversification achieved in a per unit owner share portfolio. Does anyone have
You didn't
any?
even ask me for the definition of hypothecation like you always do.
What's
To
the
pledge an asset to garnish capital investment.
That's important to understand because a lot of people are told, this could be deemed as a securities instrument. at the end of the day. And that's not the case. A note's actually not an instrument of security. There's a law that goes back to the banks back in like 1930 something, I think it was, and they went to the SEC or whatever that entity was at that time, with the national legal system, and pressed the issue that anyone can sell a note, anyone can buy a note, but once you start selling a note fractionally, that could be construed as a securities interest, right? Whereas hypothecation is one note, one investor. I'm not borrowing money. Say Alden Guajardo borrows, signed it up as Alden Guajardo. He borrowed the money and then bought the note. No, I pledged an asset in order to garnish capital investment, which means I took a loan against a position, right? Which is done in stocks, but can be done with notes in addition, right? With one investor. Right? When it's done with multiple, it could be construed as a securities interest unless done at closing. So I've seen it a few ways where people bring a transaction to the table and they get 2 or 3 lenders and they take 3 lien positions, right? So that's still one investor and one lien, one investor, one lien, one investor, one lien. And we could do that 3 or 4 times. It gets hyper complicated, because you have multiple people within that single transaction. So just want to be careful. Wanted to clarify that at the end of the day. So let's keep rolling here. We got lot 218, and I think Sean took a commitment, a verbal from an individual, but it's not sold until it's sold. Lot 218 is currently a transaction where the buyer-borrower has a full finance app in. They're partially applied at the park at a $65,000 price point. At $65,000, their proposed down payment of $5,000 gets them a monthly payment of $746.11 a month for a 20-year term. This is a year 2014, I think it was. Let me just check that year. 2012. So this is a 2012 in a family mobile home park where we have rehabbed this property, a 3-bed, 1-bath. Your acquisition costs or unpaid balance of the seller finance note is $60,000. Pays you just under $750 a month for a 20-year term and pending close. So this property will likely close within the next 10 days and pending one of our investors that Sean's in correspondence with of his transaction, it could potentially be available. It's tough to find stuff under 60,000. I know a lot of people have 20 to 60,000. Those are tough markets to hit. Why? Because there's not all that many quality homes in good parks at that price point. Obviously $120,000 home, $135,000 home is going to be a little bit more palatable within a investor's criteria of quality, right? It's a large home. Your exit is abundant to individuals that are not having to downsize or whatever it may be. Whereas in a $65,000 purchase, it's a much smaller home, and that transaction gets a little slimmer at the end of the day. So just something to evaluate. I know a lot of people want to hit those huge diversification within their portfolio, and that's easier to do with a $50,000 asset, at the end of the day. So just stuff to take into consideration. Do you want that $20,000 note, on a $20,000 home, to each their own at the end of the day. So these notes that I just talked about, these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, lot 195, lot 12, better with the front photo, but lot 12 with the rehabbed kitchen, and lot 38 and lot 218. These are homes that are in escrow or form of escrow, right? People interested in the property making steps forward. They are coming to the table as newly originated, right? Our next transaction type is a construction loan, where an investor extends credit, right, in the form of a 1-year term at a double-digit interest-bearing contract, first lien, only lien on the transaction, where we either have it in the form of stabilization and marketed for resale, have just purchased the home and are going to rehab the property. This property, lot 263. Let's see if I can get this on my notes here. Lot 263 was a $50,000 position at $50,000 as a 2-bed, 2-bath in the Mesa market, double wide, 1,400 square feet, $50,000 for a 1-year term. Is $416 a month. So say, you were looking for potentially more liquidity within your portfolio. These properties will sell likely within the year mark. So your maturity date, you'll get multiple churns out of your capital within a year in perfect case scenario. This is off major cross streets of Ellsworth and Broadway as a double wide. It's currently for sale at $59,999, and it is turnkey, immediately available. Someone could buy this property, actually, now that I talk about it, and rent it out if they like. But extending credit at $50,000, $416.66 a month for a 1-year term, and it'll likely sell sometime within the next 6 months with a nice walk-in shower. And a quality community. This is another Kingsley Management Park, gated, 55 and older. The secondary occupant can be, I think, over 45. So kind of a little bit different of a transaction type. That's lot 263. Those construction loans and seller finance notes that are newly originated end up becoming fully consummated, seasoned performing notes in someone's portfolio, right? Lot 69 in Chaparral Village, you can actually YouTube this video, has been performing for around 6 months. Let's see if I can find the right notes here. Bear with me here, but this is off major cross streets of Kyrene and Baseline in a community by the name of Chaparral Village. And it's performing in Silvercrest. This is one of 30 positions that are currently performing, contributing over $24,000 a month in passive cash flow. The current unpaid balance is $102,000. It's likely a little bit less because I did this, I think, within 30 days ago. So at $102,260, that monthly payment is $1,274.61. So making over $13,000 a year in passive cash flow. Just look at, as we talk about these deals, just imagine stacking these and what that does for someone's literal financial freedom and monthly income achieved within their portfolio. Not everyone wants monthly income. Some people don't, and that's probably not a transaction for you because you could probably find some higher yielding stuff at a deferred 1.5 or 2-year payment, in the stock market and things like that. That's not the case. This is a monthly distribution, outside fluctuations of the stock market, outside hardships in long-term rental strategies, and complications in multifamily debt being called right now. This is a hedged position at $102,000, making $13,000 a year more in a first lien position in a seasoned performing note. That seasoning comes at a cost. So we add a $2,000 transaction fee on top of the unpaid balance. At 400 West Baseline Road in Tempe, this 4.2, the total acquisition cost is $104,260. In exchange, you get your $13,000 a year in passive cash flow with no banks, management, insurance, or taxes, and that starts performing in as little as 30 days. That's lot 69. In addition,
Alden, we have a question in the chat.
Let's hear it.
It says, new here. Hi, do you have experience working with international investors?
So we have yet to bridge the gap of international capital, but we have the know-how in order to do so. Our Reg D accredited investor fund. Did you know that you don't have to be accredited if you're an international investor? How does that transaction take place? Well, we help you form an LLC stateside. Here, you fund the capital into the newly formed LLC, right? And fund the investment through that LLC, right? So that individual internationally can participate in the fund without having to be accredited. We form a business entity for them to operate out of. And within 30 days of their formation and capital infusion, they start bearing interest within that agreement. Now, depending on how they take the money overseas and things like that, that's up to them. But it is important to know that we do verify one's identity, which is required for our operations. So just know that we do have some checks and balances in order to do so, but that can be done. You know, my objective is to raise $50 million. So to find, possibly a larger international investor that likes the program or wants to participate, or really just any form from $50,000 to $1 million, we could help that start performing in as little as 30 days. In addition, we have our pad splits that I'll talk about here shortly. That's a much higher level capital commitment required. But let's keep moving down the road here. That was lot 69 for $104,000, paying $13,000 a year in passive cash flow. This is lot 20. Lot 20 is just down the way in Mesa, off major cross streets of Ellsworth, and it's not Broadway, it's like one street down from there. But this is Pueblo Mesa, a family mobile home park. Year 2014, $120,000 this property sold for. I think the buyer borrower put about $10K down, and their unpaid balance is $109,000. Total monthly payments $2,100, below market rent in 2014, 3-bed, 2-bath. Currently seasoned in Silvercrest, paying $1,361.66 a month for, it was probably $110,000 unpaid balance on 20 years. So your total acquisition, if someone were to buy this note, buy it out of mine, hold it within theirs, is $111,000 and $111,069. Quality home, quality buyer borrower, seasoned paper. Some people a little bit more risk averse, right? They don't want to take the potential quote unquote risk of a newly originated transaction. They want a stabilized asset opposed to a construction loan. This is it, right? Seasoning has proof. It's proof of payment, proof of distribution, and proof of return at the end of the day. So that trades at a little bit higher of a value given its criteria. Serena Guajardo is actually our executive sales agent. I think she just joined. So happy to have her on the meeting today. That's lot 20. Large master bathroom. I think this home's 1,200 square feet from what I remember as a year 2014. All major electrical and plumbing and central AC unit are all super up to par given the year manufactured. We're used to a lot of 70s and 80s, 90s units, but now we're getting into more newer transactions because of our relationships. So that's lot number 20. And if you see something that you like on the meeting today, don't hesitate to put a lot number and the email, your best contact information, in the chat. That's one of the benefits of actually joining these meetings, because you get access to the message board and things of that nature. So lot number and email and best contact number would be great. Lot 60, I'm bringing a couple of these notes out of the portfolio for potentially, to just make them available if you like. I know a couple people on these meetings raise private capital, so I have notes in the cut, in the back, ready to do a transaction, whether someone wanted to invest in the fund or buy a note out of the fund or buy a newly originated note or lend construction capital, those are all areas of opportunity. This is lot 60 in San Estrella Mobile Home Park, owned by CalAm Properties, a $1 billion business, one of the nicer family parks in the valley. In North Phoenix, 500 North 67th Ave. This note, it has been performing for about a year, July, close to a year. So the current unpaid balance is $64,000. Actually, it's actually $60,000. So let me update this calculator real quick. At $60,000, which it may be slightly below that because it's been a year, their monthly payment, is $790.07 for a 20-year term at $60,000. Right, it's a little bit higher of a rate on this transaction because of the form of identification. Arizona's heavy with international tax identification number working citizens here in the valley. So this individual is over 6 months. I think I did a long video on the triple flip that we did on this transaction where we seller financed the home in this same park. The seller actually posted this as down payment towards the other home, and we contracted and sold this property within the same 2 weeks. So we did like 2-3 transactions all in one in order to bring this down the road and create another cash flowing asset. That's $60,000, your acquisition cost for a 20-year term, paying $790.07 a month. That borrower's total monthly payment, even at a little cushion increase, is $1,805 a month, below $2,000 a month, as a 3-bed, 2-bath. We didn't do all that major of a rehab here. We kept it more affordable. Didn't redo the cabinets, didn't do granite. They had previous tile shower in this property, and it just kind of fit for the individual, fit giving them the monthly payment and our exit strategy, as well as our risk mitigation. We went through and checked all major electrical and plumbing, the AC unit, to make sure it's set up for a successful program. That's at $60,000. With a $2,000 transaction fee at $62,000, paying $790 a month for a 20-year term. And I could potentially hypothecate those same notes as well. Now we're moving on. Again, we have homes that we are going after. So I have these homes under contract, and we are purchasing on an after rehab value, where a lender will post 70 to 80% after rehab value as we rehab the home, get it to a turnkey property, and resell it on seller financing, opposed to, say, someone having to buy this house, seller finance it themselves, get the individual qualified twice through the community and through the third-party underwriter, have a licensed mortgage officer sign off on the loan, originate the note properly, get proper documentation, put it in a collateral file, and ultimately seek the capital for that transaction. This is a home that we have under contract at $15,000, believe it or not. We struck a deal with one of Sean's contacts. It is currently worth, in its as-is condition, I'm going to walk it actually today or tomorrow, but at its current condition at $75,000 is a $60,000 credit opportunity. At $60,000 times your proposed interest rate divided by 12 is $500 a month. So you start participating $500 a month. We have another home for sale in this same park, so we already have a tremendous amount of advertising going out. We've sold one already. We have one still lingering because the small living room, this has got a large living room, large square footage, family mobile home park, 2-bed, 2-bath. If we were to add a third bedroom, which is what we did in the other unit, and sacrificed the living room, it could go for a higher price point, and that's part of what I'll go evaluate as we view this property today, potentially tomorrow. I'll get with Sean about that. But currently, in its as-is condition, if we were to just like paint and maybe even check electrical and plumbing, service the AC unit, and do some flooring. That's a $75,000 house. That's probably a $10,000 rehab for us. We've got 30 into it, say, and we sell it for 75,000. I just made 40,000 on this house potentially, right? Depending on what its condition that I deem it's in. Sean, are you available? Do you walk this house? What's it look like? Anyway, long story short, it's an opportunity. Looks like you got a little video almost. But that's Grand Missouri Mobile Home Park, institutionally owned. They actually sold end of last year to another institution. The appetite for mobile home parks is vast. You know, they're paying 4 or 5% cap rates all day long, where we're earning triple the return in the same asset class. Same kind of transaction here. I have this currently under contract. They're not moving for 30 days. At a ARV of 99,000, I think really with just a kitchen countertop rework, so adding granite in the kitchen and probably finalizing the flooring with the paint inside and out, that's probably $15,000 rehab. I have this under contract at $22,000. The after rehab value, I've sold a home in here actually prior. If I can mute this. I've sold a home in this same park, same square footage, same beds and baths a year ago for $99,000, and that's what we'll target, $99K. Even if we were to take a little bit less on this transaction, it'd still be a major win. I mean, we're going to make $30,000 to $50,000 on this house, hands down. At an acquisition cost of $22K, we'll probably put 15 into it or less. There's kind of the kitchen counters I was talking about. At $99,000 for the investor that's wanting to extend credit. Whoops. Bear with me here. Is $79,200. So just under $80,000. And you get first lien on this pretty much turnkey property. This house is in good condition, quality area, that North Phoenix market. People ask about North Phoenix all the time. But Sonora Trail, $79,200. They get a first lien for a 1-year term and a monthly payment of $660. So for $660 a month, start earning interest in as little as 30 days in exchange for a first lien position. So that's another construction loan that we have under contract. Does anyone have any questions, comments? We'll just let it air out here for a moment and give you a sec. Remember, this is as involved or uninvolved as you'd like. But we do this all for you guys. And I just realized we have 30 people on the meeting today. That's actually a new record here for the Mobile Mailbox Money Mastermind. We do appreciate your interaction. We do this all for you at the end of the day. And the want for transparency, trust. Why? Because people do business with the individuals they know, like, and trust. And for me to come out here and show you damn near $1 million in opportunities from 50,000 to 125,000 is literally non-existent on a public platform. Normally, someone has to pay an education fee of $50,000 to get view of what this stuff and what other high-level investors do on a day-to-day basis. So we do this for free, right? I'm looking to do a deal, and I may even in the next couple of days, I've got a special offer for you actually on potentially a seasoned performing note or a newly originated transaction. So if you have yet to reach out to us before, now may be the time. If you have capital in an IRA, a solo 401k, or even better, just liquid in your account, a money market account, or whatever it may be, we have additional incentive over the next 2 days. So starting today and tomorrow, I have a special offer. If you're interested of what that looks like, and you have $60,000 to $150,000, or maybe even $1 million, now may be the best time for you to take that one step closer to financial freedom. Today in Phoenix at 6 o'clock, we have our investor lounge tour with Arizona Real Estate Investors Association at Magnum Cigar Lounge. So Magnum Cigar Lounge, let's see if I can get this real quick. Bear with me here. Is in North Phoenix. Here we are, the Investor Lounge Tour. You can actually sign up directly on their website, or really just come join us at Magnum's on 731 East Union Hills Drive, sponsored by Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. They got our logo wrong, but that's okay. There will be about 30 to 40 high-level investors, operators around Arizona joining for a cigar, maybe some bourbon, maybe you smoke cigars, maybe you don't. That's okay. You don't have to be a cigar smoker. You don't have to be a drinker. It's really just about getting to know other people in the industry, right? To maybe even meet me personally, or maybe some of our team members. I know I'm hoping Sean will be over there, and we'll have some of the Stickman Cigar Club. The Stickman is now a 38-member cigar club with other business professionals, high-level investors, hedge funds, investment bankers, the largest AC and HVAC companies in the Valley, the largest roofing and construction companies in the Valley. We just launched a Denver chapter. If you're in the Denver market, I would love to connect you with our co-members in Denver. So that's found at stickmancc.com. All of these notes, transactions, and opportunities are originated via Wynn Mobile Homes. Wynn Mobile Homes is the largest dealer of manufactured housing in Arizona. We started by buying our first house. We borrowed our first $100,000, started flipping for cash, saw an opportunity to gain additional velocity and created seller finance strategy in combination with manufactured housing, and boom, we're off to the races. We've done 400 transactions. That's over $30 million in sales, private capital placements, and note transactions. And that number is likely going to double in the next 5 years or less, given our track record. Mobile mailbox money is where we post our notes for sale. We do have a few of these up, but the best availability to get is on these masterminds or calling us direct. It looks like we do have a few of these on the site. So shout out to our virtual assistant staff, as well as have a live chat that's supported on our website for questions and comments, just to kind of, provide some further clarity. Silvercrest Opportunity Fund is the Reg D 506C accredited investor fund, and at a $50,000 minimum, to $1 million, an investor could start earning in as little as a 30-day program. That's Reg D 506C with Silvercrest. I just talked to an investor yesterday, and this morning actually, from ASREA, Arizona Real Estate Investors Association, and they're selling off a vast amount of their real estate portfolio. So I've got 100,000 coming in on Monday that will go towards these transactions, and will continually add to her position as she liquidates her portfolio. It's like, why are you going to do that? That's great to hear. She's tired of the maintenance, tired of the management, tired of owning really a portfolio. She wants to be a debt investor and make a payment backed by performing collateral at the end of the day. And her availability to do that at will is because of our deal flow, right? To find deal flow like this on a weekly basis is really tough to find from a quality operator. There's probably a handful around the nation that are still doing a tremendous amount of transactions.
Alden, we have some questions in the chat.
Let's hear it.
The first one is, questions, are there any penalties for exiting early?
So in relation to kind of different transactions in the fund, there is potential opportunity to exit early. There is not an agreed penalty for an investor participating it's important to know what kind of investor you are, and what kind of benchmarks you wanting to hit. If you're looking for multiple calls for liquidity throughout the year, that's a construction loan. If you're looking for something more stabilized and a 1-year commitment, and get your monthly distribution, that could be hypothecation or a fund investment at a 20-year term. When you buy the note, you could buy it and sell it to somebody else. You could borrow against your note transaction to get some more liquidity back your way. But currently, as it sits, you're held to the contractual agreement of the term within that contract. We don't have an agreed early exit fee or something of that nature, if that answers the question.
One more. Hi, everyone. It is my first time joining here. If a group of people wants to invest together, is that possible? If so, how does the group investment process work?
The best thing to do is to form a joint LLC with multiple members or a trust and assign beneficial interest to each individual. It's important to know each other. You have to know each other. You can't do it with people you don't know at the end of the day. But having an operating agreement within an LLC and getting together to aggregate capital, this is the opportunity to do that, just to let you know. I know multiple people, and actually normally have one or two that I know that I've known for a long time. Actually, I forgot I've got an arrow over here of people that have raised capital. They're aggregating capital. They're talking to their family members. They're talking to their friends. They're talking to their professional contacts. Hey, can I give you an 8% return? Would you take a 9% return, or whatever you need to do in order to make that transaction work, risk mitigated at the end of the day? And having structure prior to making the offer is of utmost importance. You can do that with hypothecation, with one note, one investor, or you form a joint LLC or a trust, which any attorney around the nation will be able to do that. You could syndicate, right? Create a syndication between the few of you. You could do a crowdfunding component, but as you escalate in strategy, obviously that fee starts to climb. We paid $20,000 to start a fund at the end of the day, and I stand behind that and manage the fund. So, multiple opportunities depending on what kind of capital you guys have together and how much you can burn, quote unquote, to set up the vehicle properly in order to do that compliant. All great questions. Any others? Those were some really good questions. I mean, this is the type of investment strategy for the higher intelligent investor, high income earning W-2 employee, a doctor, a lawyer, people in dentistry, or really people trying to exit the rat race of owning obligations, owning a return on investment, but that creates an obligation. The obligation on a note transaction, really you're monitoring a payment, right? You're not getting a call from the tenant on why they had a bad day, or getting a call from, because the AC is not working, or they clogged the toilet, or, it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, or whatever it may be, and the electricity went out. Why the electricity and AC unit go out always on holidays? It seems to be, part of the hardship. That's not the case with notes or a fund investment, right? This is for the individuals that want a double-digit interest-bearing monthly income in the market and are tired of the hardships, want more than depositing money just in a CD. They need the income, right? This is where it's at. That's with Win Mobile Homes, Mobile Mailbox Money, and Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. Does anyone have any final thoughts, comments, concerns, questions? In need of a bad joke today? We'll just give it one moment, air it out, give you a sec. Give us a joke. I don't have any jokes. This is appreciate you asking. But, the biggest joke in the world is not knowing that these investments exist. Most people don't know that you can buy a mortgage. This is what that is. We're originating seller finance mortgages and becoming the bank. You know, that's a truly life-changing opportunity to become the bank and start receiving payments. I'm not investing in things or owning assets. I want a payment. A payment will change your life. A payment will bring back a weekend, will give you time with your friends and family. And we do this all live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Feel free to follow my YouTube. I've got 214 subscribers. I'm going to keep talking about it. I got over 1,100 views, from educational topics to us out at the Masters, to interviews with industry magnates and professionals at different note investment conferences, to vlogs and walkthroughs. Like I said, you know, some of these homes I've even vlogged talking to the clients, negotiating, making a cash offer. We are main sponsors of Arizona Real Estate Investors Association. Please join us this evening. You can register on their website today, 6 o'clock, and we'll be there in full force. So that's one step closer to financial freedom. What do we call that? We call that mobile mailbox money.
Mobile mailbox.
We appreciate y'all being here today. We'll leave you with a little video, and I'll put my information in the chat.
Life doesn't disappear all at once. It disappears a few minutes at a time. Every alarm clock, every commute, every I'll do it next year. I tracked every dollar, but never a single hour. Then I imagined a different ledger. One column, time given away. The other, time bought back. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. Then I met people who live differently. They weren't rushing. I asked what they knew. One answer changed everything. I stopped working only for today's paycheck. From then on, I stopped looking for assets that only made money. I looked for assets that gave me time. A payment arrived. An afternoon came back. A payment arrived. A weekend returned. People asked, how much money does it make? The better question is, how much of my life does it give back? Because real wealth isn't measured by your bank account. It's measured by how much of your life you actually get to live. That's the only ledger that matters.
We appreciate y'all being here today. We'll see you next week. I'm going to put my info in the chat. Call us today. We've got a special offer for you. This may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You wouldn't know unless you reached out. We appreciate it. Y'all have a great one. Bam. Appreciate you viewing today. Get back to work. Give us a call today, 602-888-CASH.